Hello there, and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I don't know if you knew about this, but we have our own version of DOGE, that's Department of Government Efficiency, about to go to work here in Idaho. This actually took a few of us by surprise, but as excited as people were when DOGE first started its work upon President Trump reassuming office, there are some downfalls as well when it comes to, government efficiency by committee. We'll talk about whether the Idaho DOGE team can deliver what it's supposed to deliver to Idahoans.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I know that, budgetary issues probably aren't the things we lie awake at night thinking about, but when it comes to government efficiency and saving the taxpayers' money, that's a cause we all should be at least somewhat supportive of. So look at this. There was a meeting announcement that came out. Oh, this coming Friday, the DOGE task force will be meeting here in Idaho. Now, there's actually a committee, and we'll show you some of the committee members here. You know, it's a lot of these are members of the Joint Finance and Appropriation, or JFAC committee already. And as you'll see, as far as having reputations of being solid fiscal conservatives and ones who are willing to cut where necessary, well, actually only one person on this list really seems to have the actions and the record that would bear that out. And you'll notice that public testimony will be taken. You have to register to testify. There's a link you can click on in the invitation. And if you have written testimony, they want you to provide a copy to the committee. But here's the kicker. All the ways that we could be exploring efficiency in Idaho, yes, we want the public to come and to testify. You have 2 minutes, though. There's only 2 minutes. Could you cover a complex issue in 2 minutes to give, the kind of evidence that you need to, or the kind of data that you needed to these legislators? I think it would be challenging for most of us. And even the lobbyists who are looking to talk to them likewise would be like, really? Only 2 minutes? So how serious are they about this DOGE effort? A couple of great things from Christy Zito and also from Senator Glenita Zoiderveld. This is where the rubber meets the road. Okay, you're going to hear some things that may ruffle a few feathers and that might actually, upset a few people. But the gang of 8, Christy and Glenita, both are a part of that gang, I think have a pretty solid take on some things we should be aware of when it comes to government efficiency. So Christy Zito starts by telling us on Friday, July 25th, the newly created DOGE task force will meet at the Idaho Capitol. Now, this was created under House Bill 364, but there's a little controversy about that too. The stated goal here was to make government more efficient and more accountable, but will it actually deliver? Okay, now that's a fair question. When H364 came to the House floor, every member of the gang of 8 voted no. Why? Well, as Representative Kent Marmon put it, we got to find a better way. And one way would be for us to start acting as our own DOGE right here in this body. In other words, doing their job as legislators, and they hold the purse strings. That's something we elect them to do, but they would actually do it. What a concept, right? Well, we need to make a committee to study how many committees we need to make until the committees have, solved all the problems befalling the committees. You think I'm joking, but I'm really not. And actually, Christy Zito says, look, let's be honest. This task force looks more like a political distraction than a serious solution. Now, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but she has a good point to consider here. Leadership has handed out a new assignment that feels more like a hamster wheel than a meaningful reform effort. But to make matters worse, the bill that created this task force never even passed the Senate. And so Christy Zito says we're questioning, does the state have the statutory authority to convene this meeting or convene these people at all? Well, Glenita Zoiderveld had some really solid points to make on this. And, look at this. Regulation czar there, a regulation expert. Oh, we got the efficiency czar. And is it really just throwing enough bureaucrats at a problem that the problem finally gives up? I mean, I guess we can find out. Anyway, are we really serious about DOGE in Idaho? Glenita asks. Because if actions speak louder than words, she says something doesn't add up. A task force has now been created, even though the bill to approve it didn't get a hearing in the Senate. Did you know this? I wasn't aware of this. So what's going on? Is leadership ignoring the full legislature? And how were the committee members picked? And Glenita says, look, I'll say this. After looking at their voting records and spending scores, only one of the legislators chosen for this task force has earned her place in Glenita's view. So she says, if we're going to talk about making government more efficient, it should be led by people who already walk that talk. And here's another question that the taxpayers deserve an answer to, and that is, what is this task force costing them? Every committee, every meeting, every travel day comes with a price tag. If we're spending money in the name of government efficiency, she says we ought to be able to show the math. So here's a breakdown of what House Bill 364 does. It establishes the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, Legislative Task Force. And these are the stated goals: ensure efficient, responsible governance to best serve the citizens of Idaho. That's the responsibility of the Joint Finance and Appropriation Committee. Also, to review agency functions, regulatory processes, and budget authority to promote fiscal responsibility, prevention of waste, and enhanced accountability. Again, this is all part of JFAC's responsibility, but let's create a committee to especially look into this. So specifically, the DOGE task force is authorized to study and review government efficiency across Idaho state government, and then advise the legislature on findings and make recommendations. This is what JFAC is supposed to be doing in the first place. So why aren't they? Why would we need another committee? And also, the task force can work through 3 specialized subgroups. So you have the regulatory accountability subgroup. Glenita says this is what we call work groups in JFAC. And by the way, she has sat in the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee, so that this is not something she's making up out of thin air. Strengthening the oversight of state agency rulemaking, recommending reductions in regulation, working towards shifting nearly all regulations into statute by 2033. There's also the budget accountability subgroup. And again, JFAC calls them work groups to conduct base budget reviews, identify and eliminate wasteful or redundant services and expenditures, and to recommend improvements to budget processes. Finally, you have the government operations and oversight subgroup, which assesses the structure of state government and then recommends agency consolidations or streamlining efforts that would improve efficiency. So what Glenita is pointing out here is we're creating a task force to basically do the job that JFAC already has the responsibility to do. JFAC is made up of 10 senators and 10 representatives. It's their job to oversee spending and to hold agencies accountable. And yet the task forces are slowly turning the legislature also into a year-round operation. That's not what was intended. We're supposed to be a part-time legislature, not full-time bureaucrats. Also, the DOGE task force is set to operate through November 30th of 2029. Listen to this next part: unless extended or modified by future legislation. And this is a fair question. It's a hard one, but it's a fair one. Why would they need legislation to modify or extend this task force when it didn't require legislation to call it into existence in the first place? Again, fair enough. And if these task forces were truly about stopping government waste or fraud or overreach, why then has Idaho's government grown by nearly 60% just in the last 6 years? Glenita says that kind of growth tells her the oversight isn't working. And here's the real kicker: most Idahoans don't even know that these task forces exist. Like off-year elections, they happen quietly, outside of the regular session, little to no public input or transparency. So take a look and just see how many task forces are there, how much are they costing the taxpayers. That's a question every legislator needs to be asking. Every taxpayer deserves an answer there. And she says, you know what? This would be the perfect issue for DOGE to investigate. After all, if we're going to preach government efficiency, Glenita says we should be practicing it. Can't argue with that. So here is the gang of 8. You probably recognize some familiar faces there. But listen to these suggestions. These are not vague or just, we're just going to float an idea and see if it sticks. These are some pretty concrete suggestions. Fully fund maintenance budgets, which I think this is a great way of not increasing spending. Essential services and state-approved pay raises stay in place. No new employees, no unnecessary government expansion. Limit growth to 1.2%, cut waste and save nearly $1 billion. And this is the hard one: no federal money. Stop relying on DC funds that come with strings attached. They take the budget pledge because Idaho needs responsible leadership and not reckless spending. The goal here, of course, is not to amass personal power. It's to maintain Idaho's independence. So this This DOGE task force, you're going to be hearing more about it. Actually, the Idaho Freedom Foundation will have a new article coming out. Please watch for that. Probably we'll be talking a little bit more about that in Thursday's video. But now you know it's time for efficiency, but will they actually deliver? That's a question Idahoans have yet to answer. Fingers crossed. Maybe this time we'll get it right. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
Indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot.
That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see.
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this